So when we have a new job to send out for quote, we've got a couple of ways to sort of assist this process. So when you have a new job, um, you should go into the Xdrive tender file template, and this is our basic folder structure that everything should relate to. So basically, you just go File, Copy, and then you would just paste that as just 123 new job, or whatever the street address is. Okay, so once we have our folder with our new job in it, the sales estimator should use the tender documents and information folder here. And this is basically where you would save a set of the plans, anything that you've sent out for quoting, any reports that you've run, so your comparison report, and any layouts that you've done in Bluebeam should all be saved in here. There's also the preferred trade register. So this is basically a list of all of the suppliers and subcontractors, their email addresses. So we all use the same one. So once you open it up, just go File, Save As in this folder and just save it as the quote register with 123 new job or your job number. And that way we're all using the same document, so that if I update contact details on this document, you'll be able to see who the new sales rep for a particular company is or whatever. So I have just left this folder as is currently. We will be doing tender documents in DataBuild. So some of these other ones I won't really cover much off. So we'll move to the second point. So you've got a set of plans, you want to send them out for quote. I have developed the Lancon Standard Range Scope of Works for quoting. So this covers the standard homes, so the Simplicity and Diamond range. If you are sales estimating a different type of project, so a custom job, you will have to go through the colour selection, the colour documents, the specifications, the client information, and update these scopes of works prior to sending them out. But this is just, I guess, a good starting base. So I've done it as per the cost centres in here, and then basically what you can do is you can just go File, Copy, then you can open your emails up and go New, paste that one in there. Then you can open up the preferred trade register. You can go File, Save As, and then you can just pop it back in that original folder that you've got it from, which was Xdrive, Tender, 123 new, wherever that is. There we go, new job. And you just go into the tender folder and you just call it quote register 123 new job. So once that's saved there, then you can see, so we were sending out the quote request for the plumber. So there you can see the plumber's email address. So you can just go Control C and then you can go back to your email, Control V. Then with the subject line, what we do is we just copy this and go 123 new job. So that when that quote request gets returned to the estimate email account, it's quite easy. If they've just replied to our original email saying this is $3,000, it's very quick and easy for someone to put this in the correct folder in the estimate email account. It's very clear what particular cost centre, what's being covered, and what job it relates to. So, and you can also add in there their name. So if it's a particular sales rep, then you can pop Dave's name in there. You can go control copy, and then you can go, hi, Dave, please provide a quote for the following. Now, when you attach any plans, engineering, specifications, any particular information, it's very important that you save a copy of the tender documents here. So when we're actually issuing purchase orders, we clearly know what version of the plans, engineering, specifications, any other information was actually sent out to the plumber at time of quote. So generally, when you're doing a sales estimate, you'll send all of your quote requests out at once. You'll just work your way through this quote request document here. You'll send them all out for quote, and then as they come in, you'll save them. It's really important for us to know which documents you've sent out. So if you have anything, just save it in here. You should just use the same naming convention as we use in the user-defined fields. If you need a copy of that one, it's just in the Lancome Queensland. If you go into the actual job, so that's the clock, you'll be able to see this in any of the projects. If you go to UDF, they're all saved as standard. So it should be called O1 plans, O2 specifications, etc. And that way it's just consistent through all of our projects, that it's always the same name description. So I'll save a copy of those there. But yes, so this should say O1 plans, O2 specifications, so that it's very easy for anyone looking back to work out which documents have been saved where. So then you've got your quote register, and if you just update this with the date that the quote was requested, and then you can update that when it's returned. There's also areas on the side here if you want to add any comments, and this document will just keep updated as we move through. So it's just really important if you are sending out a custom job or townhouses or anything like that, that you do update this scope prior to sending it out. It clearly talks about diamond and simplicity specifications, and also our different floor plans and facades. So you can certainly use this as a base if you are doing a custom sales estimate, but it's very important that you do update it all. So do make sure you read the documents that have been provided by the sales consultant, so that you have actually checked what you're requesting for in a quote. We do like all quotes to come back to the estimate at Lancome Queensland. It just means that if there's any information there, we can all look back and double check what conversations were had. It is important that we get a quote 1 year from the quote date. So I would leave on some of this standard information there that ensures that when we have a job that's sent out for quote, the sales estimator has prepared a tender. The tender has been discussed with the client. They've gone ahead and approved it. We have submitted, we've drawn up the plans, we've submitted the documents to council. It's taken 12 weeks through council. Then we've needed to do a colour selection, which has taken a couple of weeks to confirm, and then we've started on site, and then we've started construction. Something like the carpet and floor coverings quote would be very old. It would be close to being a year old from when it was originally quoted from the sales estimate. So it's really important that we have that pricing held for the minimum of a year. Often we'll do, by the time we submit orders, it can be over a year, but I think this is fair in that we're not asking people to hold pricing too long. That can be quite difficult for them, but this gives us a little bit more in terms of a fixed price, so that our costs don't increase too much. If you receive pricing back that does not have adequate information as requested on here, just reply back to them and just say, look, we do need this to be named properly. We do need to train a lot of the people that are providing quotes for us that we do need it in this format. We've already sent out Lancon Standard Homes for quote, and they have come back being very confusing. So I would just go back to people and be like, look, sorry, it's not clear what floor plan, facade, and specification this relates to. Can you please rename it and send it back? Great. So that is just a little bit of a summary in terms of what's required here from the scope of works. So yeah, if you can put the job number in here and then fill this in on when all the quotes have been requested. We don't need to do everyone on this list. We will update this document as we go to put in preferred and, all of the contact details just to sort of help in terms of the sales estimator. So yeah, if you go through, read all your documents and update your scopes, then you can save a copy of the scopes here if you want. If it's a custom job and you want it to be, just have a copy there for your own reference. You can do that, and then that just allows you to chase them up a week later. So we normally allow 7 calendar days for the quotes to be returned. So you can always double check if you've popped in your quote requested date here. 7 days after, you can do a formula here to have that all update if it's not been returned within 7 days. And that means that it just allows you to chase everyone up. Once you get any quotes back, all quotes should be saved in the correct folder. So this is your quotes and your purchase orders. So this is as per your cost centres in DataBuild. So if you look on this Lancon Standard Homes range, if you go 04.010 structural steel, if you look in DataBuild, we just go into a bill of quantities. Doesn't matter on which job it is. And we go 04010. It's structural steel. Okay, so we're just keeping with the same codes and the same cost centre names. If you got this quote back from Metro, you would save it in the folder 04. See the 04 there. And then you've got structural steel and fabrication 04010. So you can see that with the naming convention on your emails all being the same, makes it very easy to save quotes here. So all quotes should be saved using the naming convention. Now we've actually got that. So we've got, that's your scopes, your standard scopes, your Lancon Standard Homes range. That's your quote register. And then we've also got a naming convention, which I have saved up here for you. All the naming convention is here. So if I just open that one for you, you can see that anything that relates to, we've got naming conventions for quotes. So if it's job specific, so you've sent out a custom home, so 123 new job is a 3-story custom home, you would save the quote as 123 NJ, or however it's been set up in DataBuild. This relates to this job number here. So this particular house is 6 Sinclair, and then this is your supplier name, your quote number, and the quote revision. Okay, so for this particular one here, if I was going to save this particular structural steel quote, it would be 123 NJ Metro 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, revision 1. And that would get saved there. And so that's got the job address, the job number there, it's got the supplier, it's got the quote number, and it's got the revision number. So it's very clear that the sales estimate is maybe revision 1. By the time I come to actually issue the purchase orders, or the production estimator issues the purchase orders, we might be up to revision 5. So in that case, we could just put a superseded folder there, put quote revision 1, add revision 2 here, and then I could go in there and say, okay, yep, that's why when I look in data build and I see that quote saved in that job, 1, 2, 3 new job, it's a different price because the superseded one here matches what's in data build. And then if I look here, I've got revision 2, and I'll be able to see, okay, in that quote, they got a revised set of floor plans and engineering, which has more structural steel. Therefore, it's an extra cost to the client. It makes it much easier for the production estimator or the sales estimator doing the BAPCV, the building approval post-contract variation, which takes into account any additional costs that have been added into the job since it was first priced by the sales estimator. So sometimes you won't have engineering when you do up the sales estimate. So you might make an allowance. You might say, well, I'm going to need 2 posts and a beam across the garage door. That's all I'm going to note in here on the actual tender document. So you'll note that in the specification item there as well. That's all that's been included. Now, when we actually request updated floor plans and engineering from the structural engineer, they may say, oh, you need an additional beam to cover the span of the patio. So then you get that quoted. It will be very easy to calculate. If you have a quote here showing the 2 posts and the beam to the front, and then another quote here showing 2 beams to the front and 1 to the alfresco, it's very easy for whoever's doing the BA PCV to just go, okay, the alfresco one was an extra $350, $350 for the supply. How much extra is the labour? Okay, that additional steel beam for the BA PCV is $600. It's very easy to calculate. It's very easy to work it back. So it means that the client has a complete understanding of what additional items they've been charged for. It's very easy to calculate. So that all lines up in terms of your cost center. So that's your subgroup, and then your cost center number. And the description, that's your standard scope for something like this one is for a diamond house. You would just update that for a custom house. And that would be, you would send out your emails as per the quote register. You just update that 1, 2, 3 new job, and that would have that there. You can do any comments, spoke to Bob, 23rd the 5th, will send quote next week. And that just helps you keep it up to date with maybe some different projects. If you're pricing a few projects, then that will sort of jog your memory, and it means that we've got a record of everything that's happened. And then you can pop in your quote requested dates and your quote return dates. All your quotes should be saved in the actual orders profile. And if they're superseded, you should create a superseded folder so that only the latest documents are saved here. It's very important that you save your layouts, comparison report, any documents that you've sent out that you received from the client or the salesperson for quoting should all be saved in this folder. And that this is saved for each job so that when the production estimator goes to issue purchase orders, they can perhaps, if the job needs a better margin, they can maybe send it out to a few more people for quoting. Or if you've used an allowance because you didn't have a quote back, they can chase up the outstanding quotes here for you, so that we can ensure that purchase orders can be issued quickly. So this is very important. This is only a summary. We haven't included every cost center here. If there's any additional ones, you can just add a new line in and pop in who you've gone through and then contact details. And that way, when the production estimator goes to issue the purchase orders, they'll know who you spoke to, who you emailed, their contact phone number, all that kind of thing. So it just helps keep the process going along. So once you've actually got the quote for that particular job, then you can add in the line item. So I will just go into a different job here. All right, so say you did get the structural engineering quote back. You should always use a pink item. Let me just see. Okay, so I'll just clear this. You should always use a pink item for anything that's quoted. All items in the database for a quote will be in this pink, and then you can just copy that across and add in your items. This just means when people go through and check your work, they can clearly see what items have been quoted. They can quickly go into this folder, go into frame, go into structural steel, and they'll see your quote sitting here, and they can just double check the numbers. They can then see what documents were sent out. So sometimes there can be quite a lot of time between different versions of the plan. So you might quote a job as a sales estimator. They get the price, they see that it's very expensive. They go back to their architect or their drafting company, get a whole bunch of changes done, and then come back and get it repriced to see if it fits in their budget. So we can sometimes have multiple documents sitting here. So this just means that if there's lots of different quotes, they can go and find out which quote you used in the actual tender. So you would put in the quote number. You can use the musical note here. Opens up the standard notes. You can do quote number there. You can pop in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which was our quote. The quote date, which is 12. Always use a dot rather than a dash. If you use a dash, it will try and calculate, it will try and divide. So 12/01/2020. So that was the quote date. And the scope of works, you can just copy that either from the quote or the engineering. The quote or the scope of works document that you requested. So if you requested posts, beams, connections, and delivery, you could copy that in. And that way there would be a clear scope of what you had requested to be in the quote. Now, that means that if you copy in, 2 posts in the beam, if anyone was checking this, they could go, oh, that's right, we got new engineering, there was the alfresco needed, and they would know that that item needed to be updated. They could then request an additional quote, and they could go back into this folder here, back into here, they could supersede your version 1, and they could request version 2, save it here with the alfresco, and then update that. Then they could even do something like a hide note to say original tender used revision 1. This is rev 2 with patio beam. Okay, so that would be really clear for anyone reading through that this particular item had been updated, because there can be quite long periods of time between different tenders and a job going to site. So if you use the hide note, it will not come up on a purchase order, even if someone forgets to select the line and update it prior to issuing it. So that's just an internal note that anyone going into DataBuild can see. It's just a really good, safe way to remind yourself of what's happened and what's going on, and then you know that that item is good to go. So I'll delete that item out because that's not relating to this job. Great. So that would be how you could manage that. It would be really well documented, and that would be all in this document. So any contract documents should be saved in here. So signed copy of the master builder's contract, the specification when it's issued to the client, a signed copy of the specification, a signed copy of the plans, anything that's actually issued to the client and agreed upon and forms part of the contract document. So any documents noted in the master builder's contract should live there. So that would be most of the things that would be required at this particular stage to be saved in this folder.